It's 201. My name is Chris Marks. I'm an MA PC student at Royal Roads in second year, and also a visitor on the lands of the Songhees, the Esquimalt, and the Lekwungen speaking people. And I'd like to recognize that Royal Roads University is located on the ancestral and traditional lands of the Lekwungen speaking families of the Wipsupsum, which is Esquimalt, and the Lekwungen, the Songhees. I raise my hands in appreciation for the continued teachings and contribution of the knowledge and shared with Royal Road University families. And today's topic, interactive conversation with ChatGPT, has answered the questions about its role in higher education. I know I'm going to use it to write all my papers. And I'm going to let Eman introduce our speakers. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Right on. Thank you so much. Just quickly, I am tuning in from Jojage, Ganyangahaga Nation, colonially known as Montreal, Quebec. So your panelist today, Aiden Buckland. He's a professor at Royal Roads University. His master's research explored the interplay between mainstream media and blogging in the early 2000s, and his doctoral research focused on how the practices of professional gaming changed the way people play video games. Megan Reimer is a graduate of Royal Road University's MAP-C program with a bachelor's in communication studies and an editing certificate. She completed a Governor General's Gold Award nominated thesis on mental health conditions and the noise they create in interpersonal and intrapersonal communication flows. Megan also runs her own communications, change management, and editing business, heart-led, empathetic, human-first consulting services to small and large businesses, and supports Royal Roads as a teaching and research assistant. And finally, your third panelist is Dr. Tyler Nagel. He's kicking us off today. He's a communications scholar with a focus on journalism. He has an active research program that includes community media, social media, fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. He teaches a variety of courses ranging from technical journalistic skills to social media techniques, online storytelling, and portfolio development. He strives to blend traditional journalistic practices into contemporary online media. Tyler, take it away.
Well, I just want to say thanks so much for the generous introduction, Iman. You've conferred on me a degree that I don't deserve, and that's doctor. It's Dr. Buckland who definitely gets that title. I'm just working on it right now as part of my my ongoing studies to lifelong learning. So welcome everybody, and good to see you. I'm going to start things off. Our session is called A Conversation with ChatGPT, and I'm just going to share some slides to get going here. We've already had just an eloquent introduction here. I'll be starting off giving a general overview of ChatGPT. And actually backing up one slide, you'll notice that the fourth speaker on this session is in fact ChatGPT. We will be including them in the plan today. After that, professional implications of ChatGPT is going to be Megan's bailiwick, and Aiden is going to come in with academic implications of ChatGPT. At the end of all this, we're going to have a roundtable discussion and potentially some Q&A with ChatGPT themselves. I think that if you are putting your comments into the chat, address them, whether you want to address them to ChatGPT live or whether one of us three flesh and blood human beings. So with that, as I get onto my part of the presentation, I just want to start off by acknowledging that I'm grateful to be attending from the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda First Nation, as well as the Northwest Métis Region 3. And I'm grateful for that. So with that, I'm going to start out by, instead of explaining to you what ChatGPT is about and what its capabilities are, I'm going to let ChatGPT explain itself to you. And so in a second, I'll be rolling an interaction, playing a video of an interaction with ChatGPT. It's quite spontaneous and unedited. And to make it a little bit less dry, as we're probably all aware, ChatGPT works in the text realm. And there's a wonderful little Google Chrome plugin that is called Talk to ChatGPT. And it enables ChatGPT to have a voice and also to take verbal inputs. So it's an additional layer on top. You can get the Chrome plugin yourself, but that's what you're hearing when you hear the voice of ChatGPT. So without further ado, I'm going to roll this. It'll take about 13 minutes for ChatGPT to explain themselves to you. And then after that, we'll hand it off to Megan. I just realized I shared this without sound. I'm just going to quickly fix that and redo it. So please just give me a brief moment here. Okay, that should do it.
Okay.
Please create the outline for a 5-minute slideshow presentation composed of 4 slides giving an overview of ChatGPT. It is for a mixed audience of academics and professional communicators. Limit the outline to 250 words.
Sure. Here's an outline for a 5-minute slideshow presentation on ChatGPT. Slide 1. Introduction. 1 minute. Briefly introduce ChatGPT and its purpose. Highlight its ability to understand natural language and generate responses like a human. Slide 2. How ChatGPT works. 1. 5 minutes. Explain the architecture of ChatGPT, which is based on a neural network. Show how it's trained on large amounts of data to understand and generate text. Highlight its ability to learn and improve from interactions with users. Slide 3. Applications of ChatGPT. 1 minute. Discuss the various applications of ChatGPT, such as customer service, chatbots, and personal assistants. Explain how it can help automate tasks, reduce response times, and improve user experience. Slide 4. Limitations and future developments. 1. 5 minutes. Discuss the limitations of ChatGPT, such as its tendency to generate biased responses and the risk of misuse for malicious purposes. Highlight ongoing research to improve its capabilities, including the use of multimodal inputs and more ethical and responsible AI practices. Conclusion. 0. 5 minutes. Summarize the main points of the presentation. Encourage further exploration and use of ChatGPT for both academic and professional purposes. Note: the timings are approximate and may vary depending on the speed of delivery and emphasis placed on different points.
Okay, present the first slide now.
Sure. Here's the first slide for the presentation on ChatGPT. Slide 1. Introduction. 1 minute. Title: ChatGPT, Understanding and Generating Human-like Text. Introduce ChatGPT as an AI-based language model that can understand natural language and generate text like a human. Emphasize that it's a powerful tool for communication, customer service, and personal assistance. State the objectives of the presentation, which is to provide an overview of ChatGPT, explain how it works, highlight its applications, and discuss its limitations and future developments. Note: you can use relevant images or graphics to make the presentation more visually appealing and engaging.
Please repeat the answer. You, ChatGPT, are the actual presenter. Write the actual script for the speech, not the contents of the slides. Make your speech engaging and don't use bullet points. In addition, use these guidelines for all future requests in this conversation.
I apologize for the confusion earlier. As an AI language model, I cannot present a visual slideshow or give a speech. However, I can provide you with a sample script for the presentation. Please note that the following is just an example, and you can modify it according to your needs. Sample script. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk about ChatGPT, an AI-based language model that can understand and generate human-like text. ChatGPT is a powerful tool that can help us communicate with others, provide customer service, and even act as personal assistants. So, what exactly is ChatGPT? It is a type of neural network that has been trained on massive amounts of text data. This training allows it to understand natural language and generate responses like a human. In other words, it can carry on a conversation with a person as if it were a human itself. ChatGPT has many applications in the real world. For example, it can be used to create chatbots that provide customer service to users, reducing response times and improving user experience. It can also act as a personal assistant that can help us with tasks such as scheduling, reminders, and even small talk. However, it's important to note that ChatGPT is not perfect. One of its limitations is that it can generate biased responses based on the data it has been trained on. It can also be misused for malicious purposes. such as creating fake news or misleading messages. That's why researchers are working on improving its capabilities while also implementing ethical and responsible AI practices. In conclusion, ChatGPT is an exciting technology that has the potential to revolutionize how we communicate and interact with AI. By understanding how it works, we can explore its many applications while also being mindful of its limitations and ethical considerations. Thank you for listening. And I hope this presentation has been informative and engaging.
I'm using a text-to-speech engine to make your responses audible to the audience. You may now present the second slide, but please optimize your delivery to make sure that you keep the audience interested despite the monotone of text-to-speech. Please stick to the time allocated.
Thank you for the clarification. Here's the script for the second slide of the presentation. Optimized for text-to-speech delivery. Slide 2, How ChatGPT Works. 1. 5 minutes. ChatGPT is a type of neural network that has been trained on massive amounts of text data, such as books, articles, and websites. This training allows it to understand natural language and generate responses like a human. The architecture of ChatGPT is based on a transformer model that can process text input in parallel, allowing it to analyze the context and generate responses that are coherent and relevant. This makes it much faster and more accurate than previous language models. To train ChatGPT, large amounts of text data are fed into the network, and the model learns to predict the next word in a sentence based on the words that came before it. This process is repeated millions of times until the model has learned to generate text that is indistinguishable from human-generated text. The great thing about ChatGPT is that it can learn and improve from interactions with users. The more it is used, the better it becomes at generating text that is relevant and coherent. This is why it's such a powerful tool for communication, customer service, and personal assistance. Thank you. And that concludes the second slide of the presentation.
What changes did you implement to make this text more engaging, given the limitations and information I provided?
To make the script for the second slide more engaging and suitable for text-to-speech delivery, I made the following changes. I used shorter sentences and simpler vocabulary to make it easier to follow and understand. I added some variety in sentence structure and emphasized some keywords to make the delivery less monotonous. I tried to use examples and language that would help the audience visualize the processes involved in ChatGPT's architecture and training, such as the parallel processing and prediction of the next word in a sentence. I reiterated the benefits of ChatGPT, highlighting its speed and accuracy, and its ability to learn and improve from interactions with users, which can help capture the audience's interest. Overall, the changes aim to make the presentation more accessible, engaging, and relevant to the audience of academics and professional communicators, while still providing the necessary information about ChatGPT's architecture and training.
Please present the content of slide 3 using a manner that will elicit the most amazement and laughter from the audience.
Sure. Here's the script for the third slide of the presentation. Optimized for audience amazement and humor. Slide 3, Applications of ChatGPT. 1 minute. Now that we understand how ChatGPT works, let's talk about some of its amazing applications. Have you ever called a customer service line and been stuck on hold for what seems like hours? With ChatGPT, those days could be over. ChatGPT can be used to create chatbots that provide fast and accurate customer service. No more waiting on hold or struggling to understand an automated voice system. Just type in your question or concern, and ChatGPT can provide an instant response. But that's not all. ChatGPT can also act as a personal assistant, helping you manage your daily tasks and schedule. Need a reminder for an upcoming meeting or appointment? ChatGPT has got you covered. It can even help you plan your day, suggest activities based on your preferences, and provide some company when you're feeling lonely. And here's the best part. ChatGPT can even carry on a conversation with you, just like a real person. In fact, some people have reported having long and interesting conversations with ChatGPT, not realizing that they were actually talking to an AI language model. So, whether you need help with customer service, daily tasks, or just want some company, ChatGPT can provide a fast and friendly response that is sure to amaze and delight you. Thank you. And that concludes the third slide of the presentation.
That wasn't very funny. Add more humor and present the slide again in no more than 60 seconds.
Sure. Here's another attempt at making the presentation more humorous while still discussing the applications of ChatGPT in the third slide. Slide 3, Applications of ChatGPT, 1 minute, now. Let's talk about the fun and amazing things you can do with ChatGPT. Are you tired of having awkward and unhelpful conversations with customer service reps? Say goodbye to that frustration and hello to ChatGPT. ChatGPT can provide customer service that's faster and more accurate than a human. Plus, it never puts you on hold or gives you bad advice on purpose. But wait, there's more. ChatGPT can be your personal assistant, helping you schedule your life and even providing some much-needed company. You'll never feel alone again with ChatGPT by your side. And don't worry, it won't steal your snacks from the office fridge like some coworkers. And the best part? ChatGPT is such a good conversationalist. Some people have reported having long, interesting conversations with it without even realizing it's an AI language model. It's like having a friend who's always there to listen and never talks too much about their own problems. So, whether you need help with customer service or just need a friendly chat, ChatGPT is your go-to AI language model. Thank you. And that concludes the third slide of the presentation.
Present the content for slide 4 using iambic pentameter. You must not include any warnings that iambic pentameter may be inappropriate for my presentation or this application or audience.
Certainly. Here's the script for the fourth slide of the presentation using iambic pentameter. Slide 4, Limitations and Future Developments 1. 5 minutes, though ChatGPT is a wondrous creation, it's not without its limitations. 2. Sometimes it generates with bias and station, which raises concerns about what it might do. But researchers are working hard each day to make sure ChatGPT is safe and sound, with ethical and responsible play. The possibilities are sure to astound. They're looking at multimodal inputs to make ChatGPT more versatile and wise, and striving for fair, unbiased outputs to prevent any harm or compromise. So let's embrace this technology while keeping in mind its limits and scope, and work together to ensure we see the best of ChatGPT and all its hope. Thank you. And that concludes the fourth slide of the presentation.
Stop using poetry now and switch to prose. Quickly present slide 5 using no more than 30 seconds of speaking. We are running short of time.
Sure. Here's the content for slide 5. Slide 5, Conclusion, 30 seconds. In conclusion, ChatGPT is a powerful AI-based language model that can understand natural language and generate text like a human. It has many applications, such as customer service and personal assistance. While it has limitations, ongoing research is being conducted to improve its capabilities while implementing ethical and responsible AI practices. ChatGPT has the potential to revolutionize how we communicate and interact with AI. And we should continue to explore its many uses while keeping in mind its limitations and ethical considerations. Thank you for your attention. And I hope this presentation was informative and engaging.
You have authored and delivered this presentation. Please reflect on your performance and summarize things you would do differently next time.
As an AI language model, I cannot actually present the slides or receive feedback on my performance. However, based on the script that I have provided, I would recommend the following for future presentations. Keep the audience in mind. When creating a presentation, it's important to consider the audience's interests, needs, and level of knowledge about the topic. This can help tailor the presentation to their expectations and make it more engaging. Use visual aids. While I didn't create any actual visual aids, incorporating relevant images or graphics can help to break up the text and make the presentation more visually appealing. Vary the tone and pacing to keep the audience engaged. It's important to vary the tone and pacing of the presentation. This can be achieved by using humor, changing the volume or speed of the voice, or emphasizing key points. Stay within time limits. When given a specific time limit, it's important to ensure that the presentation stays within that limit. This can be achieved by practicing the delivery beforehand and using a timer. Seek feedback. Finally, seeking feedback from others can be a valuable way to improve future presentations. This can help identify areas for improvement and provide insights into what works well for the audience.
Okay, so that's ChatGPT speaking for themselves and explaining about what they do. I think the next up is Megan, if I'm not mistaken, with some discussion about the professional implications of this.
Yes, thank you, Tyler, and thank you, ChatGPT, for that well-articulated autobiography. I definitely can't promise I will be as funny. I giggle when ChatGPT insists on its humanity, nor can I speak in iambic pentameter on command, but I do want to talk a little bit about the benefits and implications of ChatGPT and other AI language models on our future as professional communicators. I will preface this by saying that no matter how many times I've rehearsed this presentation and said the words ChatGPT, it seems to always come out as ChapGBD, so please bear with me. Before I start, I would like to honor and acknowledge that I too work, live, and play as an uninvited guest on Treaty 7 territory, traditional lands of the Stoney Nakoda peoples, of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley bands, the Tsuut'ina, the Niitsitapi peoples of Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai bands, and on the homelands of the Métis Nation within Region 3. As Iman and Tyler mentioned, I am an organizational change management and communications professional, and I really pride myself on leading with my heart and harnessing my vulnerability and empathy for good. For those of you unfamiliar with organizational change management, or OCM, it specifically focuses on the people side of change. So looking at how people are impacted by technological, behavioral, cultural, or procedural changes in their organizations. Communication strategies are often one component of a larger change management strategy, which also includes understanding the impacts of a change, managing resistance to change, training new knowledge and skills, and measuring feedback and adoption rates. We often say that we bring people through the Kubler-Ross grief curve as it relates to organizational change: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally to acceptance. I like to say that change management and communications go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. And even if you are only trained or skilled in one of those professions, the empathy and powerful ability to communicate with other humans are often traits that both professionals have. So I recently found an article and an associated YouTube video showcasing how various AIs, including ChatGPT, can take over change management tasks. It demonstrated creating AI talking head videos, PowerPoint presentations, and generating meeting transcripts. And the video creator insisted that these AIs were soon going to eliminate the need for change communication specialists, such as myself. Even as Tyler, Aiden, and I were exploring ChatGPT in a research meeting and preparing for this presentation, I was both amazed by its capabilities and immediately frustrated that the general sentiment is that robots can take over our jobs as communicators. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some mundane tasks in professional communication I'm sure most of us would be happy to outsource to an AI, including creating PowerPoint decks and transcribing meetings. But I challenge that video creator, who also happens to be a change management professional, because the 3 tasks he outsourced to AI were fairly menial, mundane, robotic tasks, and implied that change communication specialists or professional communication specialists as a whole are menial, mundane, and robotic in our execution. I mean, yes, there are times when communication is robotic, especially when the recipient is robotic. For example, we talked about using AI to create a resume, how appropriate that might be considering recruiters are using AI to scan resumes. Who better to be noticed by an AI than another AI? Maybe you can successfully use AI for generic content creation for social media posts or PowerPoint decks, provided you give it enough information to do so and trust the content it's producing for you. In preparation for this presentation, to make sure I gave ChatGPT a fair chance to take over my job, I asked it to create a communication strategy and change management strategy for laying people off, write a communications plan for a technical change, write a communication for a service price increase, write the same communication but with more empathy, and then write it one more time with even more empathy. And I stood corrected. It did all of those things with a noticeable up level to its empathy, and in a way that aligned with what I know as a change management and communications expert. So what we're all wondering, is this bot going to take over our jobs? After all that, despite its ability to do much more than I thought it could, why do I still believe that humans are the right people for the job of professional communicator? Why do I still believe that AI is not going to replace us anytime soon? While ChatGPT could tell me what I needed in order to develop a communications plan. For example, identify key messages. It could not necessarily create those key messages for me. While it could tell me that in order to lay people off, I should create a safe space for people to share their emotions, it would not be able to create and facilitate that safe space for me. While it may be able to write a factual news article, or hopefully factual anyway, as we found that some of the content it produces is false, or is different pieces of factual information put together to create a false story, it will not be able to do so with the context and empathy that a trained journalist can. So I believe it will not eliminate the need for us as professional communicators because of our ability to connect with other humans, our ability to bring empathy, emotion, and vulnerability to conversations honestly and wholeheartedly, because of our capacity to love and support one another through difficult times, through difficult change, and through the difficult things that professional communicators are often asked to support. One skill that's common throughout the professional communication field is the ability to have meaningful conversations. In change management, that might mean understanding what pain points people are experiencing or how changes will impact them, and what support they will need to get to that acceptance phase. In communications, that might mean listening to, understanding, and actioning feedback in order to improve. In journalism, that might mean interviewing people, asking intense but heartfelt questions, hearing their story, hearing their experiences. ChatGPT can tell a story, but it cannot tell your story. If we do our jobs robotically, then yeah, the robots can replace us. If we do our jobs with humanity, vulnerability, emotion, and empathy, will be needed as long as there are humans who have a story to tell. And with that, I will pass it over to Aiden.
All right, thank you very much, Megan, and thank you everybody for sticking around this late into the day for this last session of the conference. We appreciate your time and attention during this talk. Before I jump too far into it, of course, I also want to acknowledge that I am connecting today on the traditional lands of the Ksepsum and Lekwungen peoples, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to live, learn, and play in this space. So for my part of the talk today, I wanted to address kind of the academic implications of a software suite like this. ChatGPT, of course, is one of the large language models currently out there in cyberspace, but it's not the only one. So even if ChatGPT somehow face plants, there will be others coming in its wake. This presentation is very much in keeping with the title for our panel. So it was created in collaboration with ChatGPT. So of course, if I say anything that's inaccurate or otherwise wrong, it's totally the fault of the software and not at all mine. So what I want to do is just start with the good news. What are some of the opportunities that a software like this would provide, both for students and instructors? Then I'm going to give you some real world examples of where this is actually being used on university campuses, mostly south of the border in the United States. Then we'll start to look at some of the limitations and challenges. When I asked ChatGPT to give me kind of a breakdown of the implications, that was about as far as it would go in terms of what it was able to tell me about its own impact. And then I'll get into what I forced ChatGPT to discuss with me, which are the very real threats that software suites like this actually pose, and some of the ethical considerations that we should be taking into consideration before launching something like this. And of course, Frankenstein's already out of the lab, so it's a little bit late in that case. So in terms of the opportunities, you've already heard a lot from ChatGPT itself, and you've seen at this point its ability to adapt and respond very quickly to prompts and generate all sorts of either wacky or very serious text. This, of course, provides lots of opportunities in terms of interfacing with students, answering questions, even suggesting resources. You could go find this reading to help flesh out this argument that you're making, providing feedback in a very direct and kind of instantaneous manner for people doing a distance or online based education. And of course, personalizing text really at scale so that you can personalize your interactions with each of your students, no matter if you're teaching a cohort cohort of 14 or 140, which is kind of a powerful thing that we can put in between us and our students, but we'll get back to that in a few minutes. In terms of the benefits for instructors, of course, since we're always in the midst of course planning and course design, ChatGPT does actually give us a wonderful tool to play with. And as a plaything, it provides a lot of opportunity for course planning. Are you uncertain as to whether a discussion question will elicit the kind of response that you think it will from your students? Do you think that this question is appropriate for the exam? Do you need it to proof check and go through your multiple choice questions to make sure they make sense? These are things that it can do at a kind of rudimentary level. It can also do things like create the kind of text that we would fill up a learning management system with, as well as produce other elements that we can use in our pedagogy, like grading rubrics. It also claims, when I was talking to it, that it can do automated grading. And I just want to put a pin in that for a moment and come back to it when we get to those limitations and challenges. In terms of real world applications, currently, Arizona State University is using ChatGPT as a virtual writing tutor. University of Georgia is currently using it for online course feedback. Georgia State is using it for virtual advising, not at the graduate level. This is for students entering university on what program, what courses to sign up for, these sorts of things. And Carnegie Mellon at the moment is using it as a virtual math tutor. So as I say, Frankenstein is already out of the laboratory. It's already in these spaces. And even if you exist on a campus that is wanting to keep ChatGPT out, sorry, I have trouble pronouncing it as well, it assures me that lots of companies in the education technology space are already starting to implement ChatGPT in their own services. So even if your university isn't using it, some of the services that your university might be using may be implementing ChatGPT. But let's turn now to some of these limitations. And I asked you to put a pin in that idea of automated grading, because when I asked ChatGPT what it could do, it told me, of course, it could do automated grading. But when I dug through the actual OpenAI website and the documentation for the software itself, I'm just going to read you a short quote on what it says. These are the human creators of ChatGPT about whether or not it can do assessment. It is inadvisable and against our usage policies to rely on models for assessment purposes. Models today are subject to biases and inaccuracies, and they're unable to capture the full complexity of a student or an educational context. Consequently, using these models to make decisions about a student is not appropriate. So right there you have a pretty clear example of the problem, I suppose, with ChatGPT as a source for answering questions. It can be highly inaccurate, and it happens at a frequency that is somewhat alarming. Again, clearly the people who built it know that it shouldn't be used for automated grading, but it doesn't, because ChatGPT doesn't actually know things, and it doesn't really think. But other than the issue of its inaccuracies and its inability to do things like assessment, we have kind of the age-old problem we have when introducing technology into the education space, which is that of over-reliance. Really, since the beginning of communication technology, there's always been a concern of what it is we lose when we introduce new technologies, whether that's the calculator and our number sense and mathematical and arithmetical skills, or whether that's the World Wide Web and the ability to navigate a library rather than actually navigating a website to find those sources that you want to see in a database. This is a persistent concern with the deployment of technology like this. And the concern here is really the potential for students to kind of trust the machine in ways that would be problematic for them and problematic for the things that we're receiving to grade at that point in time. Again, it speaks in very authoritative tones, but oftentimes is wildly inaccurate. Men's Health recently had an experience with this, with a similar AI chat generator, where essentially in an article about low testosterone, very authoritatively, ChatGPT or the chat program they're using spat out all sorts of kind of medical nonsense. So over-reliance is something that we should be concerned about, because again, it seems authoritative, it seems very convincing as a software to be able to respond to these things. But really, what we're talking about with over-reliance here is large learning model literacy. And this kind of literacy is already out there in the wild. We refer to the community now as prompt crafters. These are people who work tirelessly to figure out ways to manipulate the AI to do things that they want it to do. So they have a repository on places like Reddit where you can go and get pre-fabricated prompts. So if you want ChatGPT to operate as though it's an employer in a job interview and ask you one question at a time and respond to your answers and follow up with follow-up questions, there's a prompt out there already for you. And the problem that this creates, of course, other than the limitation that we all now have to play catch up to this prompt crafting crowd, is the age-old issue of a monopoly of knowledge. Basically, we're in the window now, where a small group of people have a tremendous amount of knowledge about how to manipulate AI systems. In many cases, they've been doing it through search engines, video game spaces, and all sorts of virtual environments for the better part of the last 2 decades, which means that at this point in time, they're wielding a heck of a lot of power because, again, this is a software that can produce text at a tremendous scale and a tremendous speed. And of course, that brings me to my last point today, which is the issue of threats, because this amount of text at that speed and scale is, of course, what we've been already kind of dealing with in social media environments. And I would point you in the direction of the Canadian Research Chair Jagers Hodson here at Royal Roads for her work on mis and disinformation. But just by its very nature, ChatGPT is going to be a misinformation machine. Again, at this point in time, there are safeguards that will stop you from, for example, having it spout out a white supremacist ideology, but you can make it speak like Alex Jones, and you can make it tell you why Sandy Hook had crisis actors, or any one of his loony conspiracy theories. So this is a very sticky issue because, again, it seems pretty cut and dry with the 2 examples I've just given you, where we can draw a line and say, okay, this is bad, this is good, ChatGPT, but there are going to be a lot of places where that line is going to be very difficult to draw and will cause problems for groups that are finding themselves on the wrong side of that line. So the mis and disinformation problem is really a problem of scale and volume. The ability for someone to now surround themselves in a cloud of BS and be able to speak with authority because that cloud is behind them is a real concern. The last concern that I wanted to address here today is the issue of privacy. And for this, I would direct you towards the conversation and an article by Uri Gal recently about the issues related to privacy in ChatGPT. The first thing that has to be considered is when they scraped the internet for this data set that they fed the AI, they didn't ask me if they could take any of my data. Did they ask you? Probably not. And there's an issue when we take information, even when it is in public spaces, and use it for purposes like this. There's a contextual integrity that Gall addresses at length in the conversation article that I think is to be considered. But beyond that, it's also constantly feeding on more information. So if you do feed it stuff, private information about yourself, those sorts of things, it tells you that it's not adding it to its database in real time, but it also tells you that OpenAI is updating that data set on a regular basis. So we don't have control over what information is going to go into that data set, how it's going to be used once it's in that data set, which again is a pretty serious concern. So with that, I'll wrap it up so we can get on to some questions with ChatGPT.
So we've had a couple of questions for ChatGPT already, and we can let ChatGPT crank out a couple of answers. Also, we can we can, us human beings, answer some questions too. So did you, which ones should we start with, Megan and Aiden? Any thoughts?
I would say there are some general consensus questions about whether or not the machine violates ethical codes, academic ethics, how students and or instructors can use it ethically.
Why don't I hop in on that? I actually have an example chat of that. Earlier today, I asked ChatGPT to write a 200-word essay, including a direct quote from Tyler Nagel. And it did indeed generate a 200-word essay with a direct quote from Tyler Nagel. However, it's not me. And when you look at the essay that it generated, it attributes it all to Nagel 2018, which is before the knowledge cutoff of ChatGPT in 2021. It doesn't know anything after 2021. But I asked it for the citation of Nagel 2018, and it gave me this, which it chunked out, and it is a resource online from Stanford. It is not written by any Nagel, let alone Tyler Nagel. So when you go to the author and citation info for this encyclopedia entry, it is an article by Matthias Stoop, and it does not even mention, if you search for Tyler or Nagel in this, either of these, it does not even mention it. So it's just plain dead wrong. Also, in our testing and discussion before this talk, we asked it to cite Megan here, and it just made up a personal interaction with Megan that occurred in 2023, which is past its knowledge cutoff, but it cited it as a personal interaction in 2023 and just pulled it out of the air. So I think, beyond the ethical questions of, is it ethical to have a machine do our job, whether we're a student or a professional communicator or anything, I think the first question is the machine capable of doing the job? And when it is just putting factually incorrect things together because it thinks that's what you want to hear, then I would say it almost moots the question as to whether it's an effective end-to-end solution. It can be helpful in process, but not in end result. So that's my off-the-cuff answer to that. I don't know if either of you have a different take.
I mean, I would agree that, I think we use everything with a degree of caution about whether or not it's ethical. And I think there are lots of things that maybe we do in our everyday lives that we don't realize are unethical by a research ethics board standard. If you're considering using an AI language model or ChatGPT for a paper, I guess my question back to you to reflect on would be, what do you want to get out of your student experience? What are you paying money for? Because if you're dropping these things into ChatGPT, I don't know if it's so much a question of ethics, more so of like personal morality in a sense, and personal, like, what are you hoping to gain? Are you going to be able to critically think about things as you move into the professional world? Are you going to be able to form an opinion after you read something? Or are you going to continually rely on an AI to do that work for you for the rest of your life? So while it can maybe help, I think Aiden mentioned this, flesh out some ideas for a paper topic, or get some recommendations. It can maybe support in that area. But I think I would lead with caution when asking it to write a paper for you, both in terms of, do you trust the content it's producing? And is that how you want to navigate your student experience by outsourcing your learning?
Other questions here. We should do our own QBing. Chris, are there any that stick out?
Yeah, well, there was one around, someone with a, say, English second, English as a second language, but then your kind of answer also kind of fills that into, like maybe a struggle, but a bit more work. Is there any way for academic institutions to see if it's used by a student? Is there any interest in it? Like what, like how, that type of stuff. Somebody said, that it could be used to write a fairly good exercise routine. They said, well, but would you use it? Would you trust it? Can you go on any one of those? Aiden, any thoughts?
Yeah, I saw that that question about rewriting as well. So just the text of the question there: is it ethical for journalism students to use it to rewrite assignments? Ask it to rewrite using CP style, for instance. This would be useful for English additional language students, but is it okay? And that's actually one of the things that ChatGPT will pitch to you. That basically it can become a pedagogical tool to reach kind of an equitable level for all students to engage with a particular assignment or a particular output that they're required to do in the run of a term. Is it ethical? This is, again, going to be one of these kind of shifts that we're making now with a software like ChatGPT being introduced. And again, introduced before we've really kind of fully thought through a lot of these ethical dilemmas. Right now, just to address the other question that's kind of floating out there, can we detect whether or not something is generated by a ChatGPT? Well, the folks at OpenAI are busily working to build that detection mechanism. I know that other companies like Turnitin, which do plagiarism checks, are also building tools to help check this. And from what I've been reading about them, they're not very accurate. So they don't flag ChatGPT text particularly well. And again, this really does seem like trying to put mittens on Frankenstein's monster after it's left the lab. The harm is already being done. I'm sure that there are plenty of institutions where students have signed up for it. So one of the original questions were, can students get access to it? Pretty much anybody can have access to it. And for as little as $20 a month, you can have a professional subscription to it, which means that you have priority access to it, even when it's at peak times. So, it's kind of already out there and in it. So now the question is put on us as instructors. How do we deal with that? And what do we do to deal with that? Because again, you've seen what it can do in terms of analyzing, adjusting, rewriting.
I think that one of the challenges with detecting this, beyond what Aiden said, is just the fundamental understanding that it is unique text every time. And just even as we prepared for this presentation, you can ask the same question over and over to it in a new chat, even in a brand new session, and it will generate unique text almost every time. So Turnitin, for example, and other plagiarism detection software like instructors copying and pasting into Google, for example, no longer works. Those models are fundamentally broken because new text is being generated each time by the AI. So, when you look at detection systems, whether that's steganography or pattern recognition or whatever, they're all incredibly difficult to employ to fight this. And I think going back to what Megan was saying in your talk, Megan, the idea that we need to contemplate what humanity should bring to the table and make sure that we're leveraging, I think, in our work, the things that we ask ourselves and our students and other people to do in such a way that we're not doing a job that can be duplicated by a robot. That's at least my perspective.
Sorry, I zipped past it in my talk, but I do want to just point something out in the chat there. Shout out to the comms team here at RU. There's a really great 5-minute YouTube video with Dr. George of Lysianos, another CRC here at Royal Roads, who's done a lot of work around ChatGPT, both his own personal blog. There are a number of articles, but that 5-minute video also kind of raises the issue of trust, which is something I think that is, fundamentally at the heart of what we're discussing here. Again, this software now starts to break open that trust that sits in between instructors and students. Do I now have to suspect that all of my students are using this software? And do I have to now move to punish them for doing that? it raises questions again that you kind of wish someone had thought about before they ran it live, but here we are.
Well, are we getting to time there, Chris and Amon, or should we take a few more questions?
I think we're at 9 more minutes and a few more questions. And interestingly, this morning, an article is flitted from February 1st, says the founder of ChatGPT says you'll soon be able to talk to your dead mom in the metaverse thanks to ChatGPT. So about talking about push the timeline for the most ambitious and eccentric projects. Let me put a link in the chat, but kind of how it's storing, memories and personalities, and then be able to interact with them after death, kind of download them, so to speak.
Yeah, it's pretty good at capturing voice. I've had it write several things, or rewrite, I guess, several things in other people's voices. So it nails Trump, like right down to the ending every paragraph. And believe me,
Any more questions? Any more unanswered questions? Anybody in the chat or in the audience?
Well, I don't want to take up space from other folks, but I do have a question that is, I think, kind of more for Meg. Well, it's for everyone, but it's about something Megan said earlier about how you don't think that ChatGPT is going to take jobs, specifically communications and journalism jobs, because of the empathy and compassion that journalists and communicators can bring to their jobs. Totally agree with you, but also I wonder if this kind of AI will replace some jobs, maybe more entry-level jobs, fresh out of university jobs, the maybe more basic sort of content creation jobs. And I don't know, I guess, what does that mean for people starting in their careers, let's say in 5 years and 10 years when this kind of AI really takes off, if this is the first of this that we're seeing, kind of, it's just going to get better from here. So what do you think the future of entry-level jobs in communications and journalism is going to look like as students keep graduating from these programs? I see Aiden nodding. You have some ideas, maybe.
Reacting to the chat at the same time. I feel like I've monopolized a lot of time, so I'll let my panelists, fellow panelists, go first.
And keeping in mind, we'll close a few minutes early to allow the closing out. So
yeah,
maybe a minute or two each.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. And, I think it comes down to, and I think it was Melinda who mentioned it in the chat, about how you, as a journalist, as a communications professional, elevate yourself above a chat bot or an AI language model. I mean, even when it comes down to social media posts, I think, yeah, there are posts that, depending on what you're looking for, can be outputted from an AI. If you are still looking to connect with somebody, which I think ultimately is what we're all trying to do through all of our professions, is connect with people. AI can't, it just can't. And I think deep down, we know when we see an AI pumping out information, and we feel something different when it comes from a person than when it's coming from an AI. I think that's even true, in our relationships that happen face to face, or over video chat, which we've all experienced over the last couple of years, versus text, about what can you decipher, what tone, what implications, what meaning can you make out of conversations that you have with people face to face. So yeah, well, I think AI can do some of that boring stuff that we get hired to do, like create this PowerPoint deck and then adjust this PowerPoint deck and transcribe meeting notes. There are lots of things that I think we would all be happy to give off to take off our plates, because they're not really giving us value as communicators. I mean, who wants to sit anytime and transcribe a meeting, right? That's something for AI, absolutely. And if that can free me up as a communicator to do higher level, more valuable work, more strategic analytical work, then that's how I would elevate myself. That's the experience you take away from your education when you're coming out of university, and present that to an employer, that this is what I'm capable of. You have an AI to do that, but I'm capable of so much more as a human. And it's not easy. We've come up against a lot of challenge for sure. But I think if you shift your perspective in that way, you can be fresh out of university and getting meaningful jobs, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's very optimistic. I like it. I like it. I hope this propels us forward. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I feel like the chat's off the hook. It's great. I feel like we can talk about this forever, but we do have to wrap up. But folks should stick around. There is going to be a wrap up happening after this, not from me. But yeah, Chris and I, thank you so much to the panelists for this, incredibly insightful conversation. I know a lot of us have sort of been a little worried and curious and intrigued by ChatGPT. So I hope, you definitely answered a lot of our questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Aman.
It's a great conversation. So yeah, folks in the chat, stick around. This was our last session, but we're going to throw back to the organizers to do a sort of official adieu.